This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Atma Nirbhar Bharat package pertaining to Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs. The participants are Shishir Sinha, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent.
Yesterday, Union Finance Minister Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, who's also heading the Corporate Affairs Ministry, reviewed the progress of various schemes under the Rs 20 lakh crore Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, the economic stimulus and relief package announced in mid-May to combat the COVID crisis. Mr. Sinha, there were several important aspects in the statement issued after this meeting. So, if we look at these, one is that the government has disallowed foreign companies from participating in government tenders worth up to Rs 200 crore, unless there is prior approval from the Cabinet Secretariat. So, Mr. Sinha, how do you feel this move will help our domestic industry?
When we talk about tenders amounting less than Rs 200, that means these are the small tenders. And when we are talking about small tenders, we need to encourage our own entity for these kind of tenders. So these kind of tenders mostly are for the services and some kind of other services. So in that regard, domestic companies can be helpful. And to encourage MSME for these kind of activities, the government decided not to allow foreign entities in a global tender when the amount is less than Rs 200 crore or up to Rs 200 crore. So that's a very, very encouraging thing, especially for the MSMEs. And good thing will be they will get a good business opportunity. And when you are providing services to government entities, you are getting some kind of surety that the payment will be made. The only issue is that there is some delay in payment. Now the government has also said that when there is a delay in giving payment, then there will be penalty. So in that kind of situation, most PSUs and the government departments will be encouraged to pay in time, and at the same time, government has already instructed all its departments and its ministries to pay in time. So I think that's a very, very good support for MSMEs.
Mr. Sinha, the statement also said that under the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme worth Rs 3 lakh crore for COVID-affected MSMEs, Rs 1,20,000 crore worth of collateral-free loans have been sanctioned so far, and Rs 61,987 crore worth of loans disbursed. What do you feel is the significance of this emergency credit line in the current situation?
When you're talking about the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, it is covering not just MSME but all other businesses also, all the small businesses also. What are the criteria? The first criteria says that the businesses should have a turnover of Rs 100 crore. The second criteria is that they should have up to 25 crore bank exposure as on 29 February 2020. And then they can get 20% of that exposure as a working capital assistance. That is up to Rs 5 crore. Initial target was 45 lakh businesses to be covered under this scheme. As on date, when we are talking, almost 38 lakh businesses have already taken advantage of this thing, and more than 16 lakh businesses disbursements have been made to. So I feel this is a very, very important thing at this moment when the companies are not getting any kind of cash support from the market. So you are getting a loan where you do not have any kind of collateral. The rate of interest will be maximum 7.5%. For the year number one, you don't have to repay even the principal. You have to repay the entire amount in 36 equated monthly installment that we call as the EMI. So it's a good business support at a cheaper rate, and when you are going to have some kind of cash flow, then you will be able to repay that. So at this moment, when the market is down, when the companies and the small businesses are not getting any kind of cash flow, these kind of working capital assistance will help them to regain their strength and work in a proper manner.
Mr. Sinha, the statement issued after the meeting yesterday said Corporate Affairs Ministry is finalizing a special resolution plan under the IBC to rescue bankrupt MSMEs. So government is going all out on all fronts to save MSMEs from this crisis situation, which is threatening their very existence in some cases.
One thing we need to understand that what is the basic thing which the government is going to provide. First, they have amended the definition that when the default will trigger. Earlier, that threshold was rupees 1 lakh. Now that threshold is rupees 1 crore. So that means number of companies will come down, number of small businesses will come down when we are talking about higher threshold. So that will certainly help businesses, because when you are entering into insolvency process, all kind of support from the banking system stops there. So when you are not going for any kind of insolvency or bankruptcy process, when you are not going for any kind of liquidation measures, you will have all kind of support from the existing system. And that is the basic purpose of this particular amendment in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. And I think this is going to help the small businesses in a big way.
In fact, if we just go back to the last issue that we were discussing about Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, you mentioned that as of now, about 40% of the permitted amount has been sanctioned so far. So you feel that more awareness is needed among the medium and small enterprises, among the small businesses, that these facilities are available and they can avail of them?
Certainly, more and more awareness is required. And the other thing is that the MSMEs are still not very convinced about that whether they should take further banking exposure or whether they should go for additional credit line or not. Because ultimately, the burden will lie on them. They will have to repay the amount. So that is the one kind of hitch among all the MSMEs. And that is why we are seeing only, say, 37, 38 lakh MSMEs and the other businesses have been sanctioned. And out of that, only 16 or 17 lakh businesses have taken the loan. We also need to understand that this is a scheme where the MSMEs are, or any other business, is not required to visit the bank branch. It is the bank which will have to come to businesses to provide that kind of facility. So we need a two-pronged strategy. First, we need to explain to MSMEs and other businesses that this kind of facility is available. And at the same time, we need to encourage the banks to go for maximum lending. They have liquidity, they have cash in their bank branches, so they can easily disperse. The only thing is both of them need some kind of encouragement, and then we will see more and more people are going to take advantage of this scheme. Please understand that the deadline of this scheme is October 31st. So we are into the month of July. So we hope that within next 2 months, we will see good progress in this particular scheme.
Finance Minister also said that within a week of its launch on July 1, financing requests of close to rupees 10,000 crore have been received under the special liquidity scheme for stressed non-banking finance companies and housing finance companies. The first application has been approved, rest are being considered. Mr. Sinha, how crucial is it to support these finance companies so that demand is created and boosted?
The NBFCs or the housing finance company or the microfinance institutions, we also call them as the shadow banking, and they are having different kind of problems. When you compare with a normal commercial banks have an advantage that they are taking deposit, all kind of deposits, and they are providing all kind of loan. When we are talking about NBFC, HFC or microfinancial institutions, they are taking deposits only of certain category, like a fixed deposit kind of thing, and they have to provide advances, they have to provide loan to a specific group. Now with the kind of COVID pandemic effect, we are seeing that businesses are not in a position to repay their amount. And when you do not have inflow of money, you are not in a position to repay your deposit. And that is why NBFCs, HFCs and MFIs are in a different kind of problem. Considering this problem, the government announced a special liquidity scheme amounting rupees 30,000 crore. And I think within a week or so, almost 10,000 crore, that means around 33% of the target amount have already been applied. And we believe that first application has already been approved. Amount has been made available to them. And in next 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, we will see a more development in this fund. More and more NBFC will apply for that, and more sanction and disbursement will go to them.
Mr. Sinha, another announcement was that a Department of Expenditure, an arm of the Finance Ministry, has issued instructions to central agencies such as Railways, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and Central Public Works Department to give their contractors additional time up to 6 months for completion of contractual obligations, including in respect of EPC and concession agreements. Do you think this is a welcome decision given the COVID situation?
There are two things. So one is the completion of work, and other thing is the completion of formalities. So when we are talking about completion of work, and most of the work under various contracts awarded in railway or in other infrastructure ministries, they are labor intensive. You need labor to complete that project. And a timeline is given that you have to achieve this milestone, then you will be paid this much. You have to achieve another milestone, then you will be paid this thing. So contractors are having a dual problem. On the one hand, they are not getting labor to complete their project, and the other hand, they are not able to complete the milestone so that the payment will not be released. So considering these two issues, Department of Expenditure under the Ministry of Finance issued a fresh guideline saying that 6-month extension will be given. And since we are seeing that people are, or the workers are coming back to work, especially for road construction or laying down of railways and other activities in railway and other infrastructure areas. So we hope that within next 6 months, the contractors will be able to complete the contractual obligation. They will be able to complete the milestone, and then payment will be made available to them.
Mr. Sinha, we come to a very important sector of our economy, which is agriculture. So as per this review, what is the progress on additional emergency working capital funding for farmers?
At this moment, when all sectors of economy, see, we divide the economy into 3 sectors. One is the services, other one is the industry, and the third one is the agriculture. If you take the share of these 3 sectors, services has a share of almost 57%, industry has a share of 30%, and agriculture has 13%, 1-3. So agriculture has least share, but it has maximum importance in overall economy. You see, almost 65% of our population depend upon agriculture. When we talk about workforce, almost 50% of our workforce depend upon agriculture. So with the kind of importance this sector is having, we need additional support to them. And especially at the moment when the Kharif sowing is going on, when the monsoon is in a normal situation, we need to provide some kind of support. Keeping this in mind, the government decided to have additional emergency working capital funding for farmers through NABARD, and the amount was 30,000 crore. That means, as we all know, that NABARD is a refinance agency. NABARD provides money to various other institutions like commercial banks, and in turn, commercial banks give loan to farmers. So if we see the progress of this particular scheme, almost 25,000 crore have already been disbursed, and the target of covering on nearly 3 crore farmers, that is certainly going to help the farm sector, especially at the moment when the Kharif sowing is going on, when they need money to buy seed, farmers, and when they need money to have agriculture or the rural machinery. This particular money, this particular credit will help the farmers. I was discussing the importance of this particular sector in overall economy. If we support the farmer in big way, farmers will contribute in a big way in the economy.
Mr. Sinha, the Finance Ministry has also sent a formal communication to state governments raising their borrowing limits for 2020-21 by 2%. Earlier, this limit was 3% of gross state domestic product. Now it has been increased to 5%. This will mean additional resources of rupees 4,28,000 crore during the COVID-19 crisis. This increase, however, is subject to implementation of state-level specific reforms. Do you feel this increase in borrowing limit and pushing ahead reforms both are need of the hour?
Certainly, we need to understand that there is a law which is called FRBM, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, and that decides that how much money you can borrow in a particular year. Normally, the target is 3% of GDP for the union government, and 3% of GSTP, that's a gross state domestic product. So an additional 0.5% can be borrowed in case of emergency, like these kind of situations. So up to 3.5%, you don't have any problem in borrowing that money. For additional 1.5%, you need to achieve certain milestones in forms of reforms activities, reforms in, say, power distribution sector, reforms in land record and other areas. So these reforms are going to benefit the state. So when you are going for reform, you will have a better resources management system, and that is going to help the state. So when you are putting some kind of condition in form of reforms to be achieved, it is going to help the state in a bigger way, and then the requirement for going for additional borrowing in coming year will not be there. And also, when you are borrowing at a higher level in this particular year, you need additional money during the next few years to repay those money. So when the reforms activities are taking place, you will be able to generate more and more money, and that is going to help you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, for this detailed discussion.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on Atma Nirbhar Bharat package pertaining to Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs. The participants were Shishir Sinha, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.